Roki Sasaki is one of the highest anticipated free agents who are still available, can still be signed, and there are a bunch of central teams who should not be saying, too rich for my blood.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. That's Sully Baseball and Blue Sky, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. This is always that strange part of the off season where we've had a big flurry of events. And obviously, the signing of Juan Soto was kind of the big Jenga piece that needed to be moved. And we saw there were, Adames, we saw Max Fried. We saw several other big moves, Crochet being traded to the Red Sox. And then eventually you'll have these moments of eerie silence. And those of us who are big baseball fans in the hot stove league can say, it's quiet out there. Yeah, too quiet. Now, there's a lot of rumors going on about will Justin Verlander sign with a certain team, and finish his career out there. Alex Bregman is still floating around out there. But right now you look up and say, what's the big news of the day? And, I'm constantly refreshing MLB trade rumors. And, there's just not the big pieces of news that you'd want to have to make, Michael Plasmeyer, a left-handed pitcher who pitched with the Phillies a few years ago. He signed with the Rangers. Somebody call Ken Burns. That's going to be a whole episode, is that signing. You're waiting for stuff. You're just waiting for stuff. And one of the big free agents that's still up there is Roki Sasaki. And he's being repped by Joel Wolf, and he held, in an article that was written by Steve Adams on MLB trade rumors and talking about how he was, holding court and, sorry, I was scratching my nose, and, he's talking about that he really can't wait to play in America. He idolized the Masahiro Tanakas and the Yu Darvishes of the world, and he's out there looking to sign a big deal in an American team. And, for those of you who don't know about Sasaki, and unless you're Allison Mitchell, the infield fly girl who just loves following all, she follows Taiwanese and Korean and Japanese baseball left and right. Roki Sasaki, I've never seen him pitch. Apparently has amazing stuff. 1 year he struck out 135 batters in 91 innings. Throws to a low ERA. Plays for the Chiba Latte Marines, who, by the way, are managed by Masato Yoshi. If for those of you who remember Masato Yoshi, he came over and had a couple of good years with the New York Mets and helped get the Mets into the National League Championship Series in 1999. He kind of played a little bit with the Rocks and the Expos, and then returned to Japan. He was a huge star in Japan, and he was in that kind of, I guess, second wave of Japanese stars to come over. But either way, Sasaki is a free agent who is available and has been kicking the tires for a bunch of teams. And now Goro Majima, who's in the live chat, brought in and said he threw a perfect game at age 19. Amen. And one of the things that we're seeing is that when some of the big stars have come over from Japan, the the results have been pretty decent, pretty much based on any place where a player comes through. And you'll see, obviously, there have been the Kagawas of the world who didn't really pan out, but you've had legitimate stars like Yu Darvish, who's had a wonderful career. Hideki Matsui obviously had a terrific career. Koji Uehara is a folk hero in Boston. Hiroki Kuroda and Masahiro Tanaka both were solid pitchers in the American League and had good, solid, long career. Shota Imanaga's doing well for the Cubs. Masataka Yoshida has shown he can hit with the Red Sox. Yusei Kikuchi has pitched pretty well over the years. And then, of course, Kenta Maeda had a nice career. Has pitched well in the United States. Yamamoto, he's had one injury-plagued season, but when he's pitched very well. Daisuke Matsuzaka had one or two really good years with the Red Sox and helped pitch them to the World Series title. And of course, I mentioned Matsui. You have Ichiro Suzuki, who's going to go to the Hall of Fame this year and basically prove to the world that, hey, a good player, a good position player in Japan can translate to the United States, which of course makes the fact that Sadaoro never played in the United States, kind of frustrating. But then again, he didn't appear to want to play in the United States. But Nomo was the first big Japanese star to come over and show that he can pitch in America. But there was this notion of, well, they can bring pitchers over from Japan, but you can't bring a position player. And Ichiro Suzuki said, hold my beer, and became a Hall of Famer. And Hideki Matsui came over and said, I can fit perfectly in with the Yankee core. And in fact, he was the MVP of the last Yankee World Series title. And, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Ohtani has worked out pretty well. Which brings us back to which brings us back to Roki Sasaki, right-handed pitcher, 23 years old, has great stuff. And when he posted, there seemed to be almost a borderline understanding that he was going to go to the Dodgers. And, you could pretty much, people were almost writing it in pen that he was going to be alongside Yamamoto. He was going to be alongside Ohtani, who, by the way, remember, Ohtani was having a rehab year last year. That was him rehabbing because he's going back into the rotation this year. And if Yamamoto is healthy and Ohtani can pitch and Glasnow can pitch and Snell can pitch, oddly, the Dodgers may actually be better next year. So put Sasaki in that rotation and boom. And before you say, they would have too many starting pitchers, remember the Dodgers had to play a bullpen game each series in the playoffs last year because their starting staff was whittled down to nothing. So don't talk to me about pitchers and, having too many of them. But there is an interesting wrinkle in the free agency path of Roki Sasaki, and that's this. He wanted to play in the United States, and he pushed the Chiba Lotte Marines, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, to post him. And there's a really interesting article written by Katrina Stebbins on the Motor City Bengals site. And what she points out is that because he's 23 and not yet 25, he can't get the international free agent unlimited payday. So he can't get, as good as he is, he can't go getting paid what Yamamoto can get paid. He can only make, and this is according to the Motor City Bengals article written by Katrina Stebbins. I gotta give credit is due. I'm going to read from the article. This means Sasaki can only make league minimum and get a signing bonus for the international funds, which would mean it's about $7.5 million, roughly $7 or $8 million to sign him with a signing bonus. In other words, for the notion that only the big market teams could sign a player like Sasaki, that is factually untrue. You have a pitcher who maybe you won't be able to have his whole career, but you could have a pitcher, a young pitcher, potentially in his prime, pitching for you, and it won't be a break the bank situation. When he becomes a free agent, when he becomes 27, 28 or whatever it is, yeah, that's a break the bank situation. But you could have 4 or 5 years of him pitching for your club. And that suddenly opens up the bidding for a lot of teams who could really use a Sasaki to pitch them into October. And can you think of a team or two who could use him? Oh, I can. I can right now. In fact, I'll say it. Every single team that plays in the Central, AL or NL, with the exception of the White Sox, should be going all in on him. And if they do you know what? Some interesting things may be afoot in the Central. Hey, let's hear from our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. All right, let's head on over and talk to our good friends over at SelectQuote. There we go. SelectQuote. Now, the World Series, Super Bowl, the Olympics, the world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in the family's end zone. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance broker with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. You invest so much time to take care of yourself and to be the healthiest, best version of you. SelectQuote's exclusive policies can reward that effort. If you're in good health, they can work with carriers that can get you same-day coverage for up to $5 million. No medical exam required. And these policies are more affordable than you can think. You can get coverage for up to $1 million for as little as $20 per month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/lockedon. Go to SelectQuote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/lockedon. Now, think about the Central right now, both the American League and the National League Central. Who is the dominant team in either one of those divisions? The Cubs, who haven't made the postseason for the last bunch of years, who have been hovering around the playoffs but haven't been able to jump into it. That's the team. It's tough to call them dominant when they've been a mid to low 80 win team, unable to leapfrog the Milwaukee Brewers. Are they going to be the Brewers, who just lost Willy Adames? There is no dominating team in the National League Central. You may have to pick the Brewers to win again, just out of necessity. The Cubs are certainly going for it. They're certainly trying to make the big moves to get there, but I'm not going to crown them champion. A lot of people thought they were the can't-miss team for 2024, and they swung and missed, just like the St. Louis Cardinals looked like they were the only team trying to contend in 2023. So naturally, they finished in last place. And the Cardinals are in full rebuild this year, as they're going to say skedaddle to a bunch of their high-priced players, and I'm probably going to try to rebuild. Well, that leaves the Brewers and the Cubs, but you also have the Pirates and the Reds. And the Pirates are approaching a decade without a playoff appearance, and that's inexcusable. And the Cincinnati Reds, who made the playoffs during the COVID year and were contenders not that long ago, and looked like they're putting together something fun and exciting this year, and then they fell apart. Well, they didn't bring in Terry Francona to rebuild. And Terry Francona didn't come out of retirement to rebuild. And so if you are a team like the Reds who owe your fan base something good, the Reds fan bases are owed a good, solid year. And you have already Hunter Green in that rotation. You have a couple, what are you going to get out of Nick Martinez? What are you going to get out of Brady Singer? I don't know. But you have an Ellie De La Cruz in that lineup. You have the Eimer Candelarios in that lineup. You have the Christian Encarnacion Strands. You have some of these players who could be exciting players on this squad in a winnable division. And if you start your rotation with Sasaki and Green, and you hand the lineup over to a Hall of Fame manager like Terry Francona in a winnable division. I mean, that's one of the things. If he wants to play in October, he could go to the AL East if he wants, but you're not sure what's happening with the Yankees. You're not sure what's happening with the Red Sox. You're not sure what's happening with the Orioles. They could all have great years. They could have bad years. Are you going to sign with the Mets? It's distinctly possible. Are the Braves, could they look up and say, hey, we need someone to fill Max Fried? Yeah, it's possible. But there are three super teams in the NL East. The Mets could be the third best team in that division if the Braves get their act together. The Phillies on paper are the best team. And in the National League West, you have the Dodgers and you have the Padres. And they're probably going to be at each other's throats. And then in the Central, you have a bunch of okay teams where your arm could be the difference. And those teams should be saying, yikes, we could get this pitcher in there. If I were the Reds, I'd be falling over myself to sign him, to show Francona that they mean business about having a decent rotation and will try to win an extraordinarily winnable division. You know? And I'm telling you, Goro Majima says the Cubs better get him. They may absolutely get him. They may absolutely get him. Tim Firth says, should the Cubs sign Sasaki, pair with Imanaga? Yeah, absolutely. Pair with anybody. But if I'm the Cincinnati Reds and I'm taking a look and say, this is a winnable division. Why not us? What is so great about this division where, the Brewers won the division by 10 games. Okay. Does anyone think, and by the way, the Brewers had the same identical record as the Padres and were only 2 games worse than the Philadelphia Phillies. So I may be disrespecting them a little bit. Maybe the Brewers should be jumping on this. But if you're the Cincinnati Reds, who were 77 and 85, kind of on the cusp of mediocrity there, but there's a little bit of an improved attitude with having a Hall of Fame manager there now. See how that worked with the Rangers? That maybe, just maybe, bringing in a Sasaki is a message to the team and to the fan base saying, like, yeah, we're going to try to win this thing. We're going to try to get back in this. What the hell are we doing? You don't bring in Francona to rebuild. But I am telling you something right here and now. The team that could get him could very well be in the American League Central. And there's one club that I think should go after him with all guns a-blazing, and should also make another move to, give them the depth that they need to win the division. Hey, let's talk to our friends at Gametime. I've been using Gametime. I've been talking about the fact that I use them to get my National League Championship Series tickets in Los Angeles. Well, I'm going to be trying to get some Sharks tickets over the Christmas holiday, and I'm going to be looking forward. It should be fun. Gametime is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better, and it's the perfect gift. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And Gametime Picks, the curation makes it easier to save more on sports, comedy, concerts, theater, and more. All in pricing. Toggle this feature shows the total upfront cost. No surprise fees at checkout. You get the panoramic view from the seat in the app before you buy, and the lowest price guarantee or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. The Gametime ticket coverage gives you coverage with the most flexible customer service plan in the ticketing industry. Take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? I'll tell you what time it is. It's Gametime. Let me get this out of the way right now. The White Sox should not sign him. No, the White Sox, if they kept Crochet, then I thought it would be interesting to see them try to stockpile pitchers to make a run at it. No, the 121 loss Chicago White Sox are loading up on prospects, and they have a bunch of prospects in their pipeline, and it would not stun me to see the White Sox be a contending team in 2026 or 2027. What the hell happened to Jose Abreu and Tim Anderson? Remember, like 2 minutes ago, they were all-stars and potential MVP candidates, and now they're DFA'd and not on anyone's radar. If I were a team that was really just in the dumps, I would take a flyer on them. Maybe the White Sox should bring them back. They already have their shirts printed up. They're going to stink. Let's bring back a couple of familiar faces to bring it back to the glory days of 2021. But the White Sox should not be in the Sasaki race. All the other teams should, because remember, 3 playoff teams, 3 came out of the AL Central, and the Twins missed by that much. Obviously, you had the Cleveland Guardians, had a wonderful year last year, and got to Game 5 of the ALCS. If they were able to drive in a run in the 9th inning of Game 5, they would have gotten to Game 6. I digress. Kansas City went from 100 losses in 2023 to the division series in 2024, and the Detroit Tigers, who were a bad team. In fact, they traded away Jack Flaherty at the trade deadline. They wound up almost getting to the ALCS, just barely missing it. The Minnesota Twins would be an interesting landing spot for them. So they already have, some decent pitchers in there. Pablo Lopez is there. Joe Ryan is projected to have a decent year. You give them another solid arm, and they have a good lineup. They got some bats in that lineup, especially if Byron Buxton somehow stays healthy and Carlos Correa has a bounce-back season. Then the Minnesota Twins, give them Sasaki in that rotation. Well, they could be a big-time contender. Cleveland brought back Bieber, and good for them. They should have. They have Bybee, they have Lively, they have Gavin Williams. Put Sasaki in that rotation to go along with Kwan, to go along with Manzar, to go along with Josh Naylor and Jose Ramirez. Then that would be a potential 100-win team. And unless we forget, they have a billionaire owner who is one of the wealthiest owners, one of the wealthiest owners in all of baseball. The window of opportunity to win now is for Cleveland. And to finally win the World Series in Cleveland, which hasn't been done since 1948. And they've had they've had the 2 biggest missed chances in the wild card era. Only 2 teams in the wild card era have lost Game 7 of the World Series in extra innings, and both of them played for Cleveland. The 97 Indians and the 2016 Indians. And they were called the Indians back then, so I'm not being cruel. By the way, 2016, when it was Cubs-Cleveland, that was the last time the Central had a pennant winner. They had both pennant winners. And the AL Central went on a little bit of a roll when they had the Tigers in 2012. They had the Royals in 2014 and 2015, Cleveland in 2016. And the NL Central had a couple of St. Louis pennants and a Chicago World Series title in the 2010s. But since 2016, since Obama was president, Obama was the president the last time any Central team won the pennant. And the Guardians had a couple of teams that looked like they could really win it, especially the one in 2017. And last year's, if they had a couple of hits here or there against the Yankees, they could have a shot. That's their win of opportunity to put the, over the top and a Sasaki in that rotation. But and I know Cleveland will never do that because, as Jesus Perez says, Cleveland will never pay up for a superstar pitcher. Exactly. So, by the way, people are on there telling me about yes, I understand regression happened with Abreu and Anderson. It was just pretty abrupt. But I'll tell you, the team that I think should be going after Sasaki absolutely are the Tigers. The Tigers are the team that could take advantage of the fact that their payroll isn't sky high. It won't take a sky high payroll to acquire Sasaki. And I think if they sign Justin Verlander to say, hey, Justin, come back, have a farewell season with Detroit, reunited with Hinch, and no pressure. They brought in Alex Cobb. They have Reese Olson. They have Jackson Jobe. They also have the Cy Young Award winner and Tarek Skubal. So that would take some of the pressure off of Sasaki. You're not asking him to be the ace. Detroit has an ace. Detroit could have, if they bring in Verlander for a farewell season, then you have an ace and a Hall of Famer with Sasaki. You're removing a little bit of the pressure off of him. He doesn't have to carry the rotation. He's not being asked to be the savior. And you bring in a Hall of Fame starting pitcher who, I don't know what influence Hall of Famers have on certain players, but it can't possibly be bad to be able to have a team and look over and see there's someone who's heading to Cooperstown and be able to get wisdom from them. And sometimes these inspirations, some of these veterans are not where you necessarily remember them coming from. I saw when the MLB Network had a feature on Dave Parker, one of my favorite players. There he is on my wall back there with one of my other favorite players, Jim Rice. When Parker justifiably was inducted into the Hall of Fame, showing how when Parker played his one season with the Milwaukee Brewers, had a good season there, by the way, made the All-Star team, that he was a big influence on Gary Sheffield. Now, you wouldn't think that. I don't think about Sheffield and Parker. I barely remember they were teammates, but apparently he was a big influence on him. We all snicker at the horrible contract that Albert Pujols signed when he went to Anaheim, but apparently he was a big influence on that rookie who showed up during his first year in Anaheim named Mike Trout. And the two of them had a bonding, and having a MVP Hall of Famer on the team probably was a good positive thing for a Mike Trout. I bet we all forgot that Randy Johnson pitched for the 2009 San Francisco Giants, but the Giants contended that year, and they won the World Series the next. And how bad would it have been to have one of the great pitchers of his generation, if not the best pitcher of his generation, and Randy Johnson, rubbing off on the Lincecums and Canes and Jonathan Sanchez's of the world? Bumgarner wasn't really much on that team yet. So having a Verlander on the staff with a Cy Young Award winner and Sasaki, the Tigers don't have an out of control payroll, and it won't cost them as much as a Yamamoto or some of the other big stars from Japan. I'm just saying, the Central should be going after him big time. Jesus, and Jesus Garcia. We got a bunch of Jesuses today. Jesus Garcia says, I think the Tigers will be a dark horse team. Matt Vierling is going to break out soon. It's interesting that I think he will too. It's interesting that a team that got to the division series is a dark horse team. And then Jesus Perez, the other Jesus on here, says, I bet the West teams will get the Japanese player because they like to take advantage of the Japanese market. Yeah, there's something to be said for that. But I also think that you have seen Japanese players go to the East. We've seen Japanese players, when you think about some of the big stars, certainly, Matsui and, Tanaka and Hiroki Kuroda and Koji Uehara. Well, Koji kind of bounced around before landing in Boston. But Yu Darvish initially landed with the Rangers. Matsuzaka landed with the Red Sox. So, a lot of times money does talk. And Jesus Perez wrote, New York have no money now. Oh, you're funny. All right, well, we're going to find out. And Goro Majida, last thought, I got either Kansas City or Minnesota make it out of the Central. You could be right. I like KC. I like what KC is doing with their team. And who knows what you're going to get from Minnesota. But who knows? He'll probably just sign with the Dodgers. But it was just a little fun thought experiment here. So let's see if any big moves happen tomorrow. So follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, talking about how Roki Sasaki should take a look at the map of the United States and think, I'm taking this one right down the middle. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.